So I wanted to make a little video about the Fazer, and specifically the work I did to it to fit in an FZR1000 motor. Because a lot of people want to do this, but there's just such limited information about how to do it. They just, they kind of give up before they start, but I figured it out. So I'll show you what I did. So this is a 87 Fazer. It had a blown engine, so doing an engine swap was pretty easy to do. It wasn't hard to convince myself. So okay, the motor's from a FZR1000 from 1987, I believe. No idea the miles on it, but what I had to do to get it to work. There is I think it's the gear shift shaft. This guy needs to be, let's see, yeah, that guy right there needs to be replaced with the Fazer one. So what that requires you to do is you need to remove the entire clutch pack, take out the whole assembly in order to swap that thing. But it's not that difficult. New hard lines had to be made. These guys back here, right there, the hard lines going from the engine into the soft lines for the coolant, those needed to be remade just to make it all work together. I can't really go into too much detail about that because you figure it out once you get in there and you start poking around. You can figure it out, but essentially, like, these hard lines coming off the FZR1000 just kind of need to be cut so that you can fit the Fazer soft lines on there. And of course, you gotta get some new soft hoses from like the auto parts store and cut them to length, and cross your fingers and hope that everything works good when you turn it on. Other things that needed to be swapped out, you obviously need to use the lower water pump outlet from the Fazer. You need to put that on the FZR motor, just because the FZR runs its coolant through the frame. No, the FZX runs its coolant through the frame. The FZR does not. So the FZR one kind of pokes up like that. This one needs to, obviously, yeah, it pokes up like that. That one needs to go like that. That needed to be swapped out. What else? I think there was something else. Oh yeah, the CDI, the wiring. Now you need to use the FZR. You need to use the FZR CDI in order to make this work. If you try and use the Fazer CDI, it's not going to work correctly. But repinning it, there is some links out there to which wires go where for the repin, and it's really not that difficult. Just get a little, precision screwdriver in there and take out the leads and swap them correctly. But you do need a FZR CDI in order to make it work. The one thing that made this build a little bit longer than I wanted it to be was I had to wait about a month to get an FZR CDI off of eBay because the donor bike didn't have one, and that kind of sucked. So the radiator and fan is from the Fazer. I think the reason for that is just fitment. Like, it just I would have to make a new bracket for the to fit the FZR one, but really there's no real difference. It works just fine. The one thing I did for the FZR, and this might vary depending on the model that you get, but I deleted the IAS system, the AIS, whatever the hell it's called. It's this little snorkel sort of nanny state thing that was put on certain FZRs. And basically all it did was just rob you of a little bit of performance and make the front end of the bike look a lot messier. So really all I did is, like, there's 4 ports. Let me see if I can see it on the camera. There's 4 ports coming out of the engine here. And all I did is I I took a tap and die and I got it to, I think, 14 millimeter, but don't quote me on that. And just spun it in there to tap it, and then spun in some bolts there with some washers and some red Loctite to hold it in there. And I plugged it right up, and no ill effects, and everything's hunky-dory. Let's see. The carbs are from the FZR. The only, they bolt right in, and I think you'd be better off just using the FZR carbs anyways. Instead of, I think some guys, what they'll do is take the Fazer carbs and rejet them for the FZR. I prefer just to slap the FZR ones on, but it's not a direct swap. There's a few things that have to be done. First of all, I'm using the uni filters. One, because they're the best. They're the best filters you can get. And two, because of the frame rail and how it sits in, the FZR frame rail comes out like this around the carbs. The FZR or the FZX one goes kind of in the middle. So if you use something like a conical style filter, you're going to run into clearance issues here on the frame. So something foam like this is able to press right up against the frame rail here and be completely fine. So the one reason I always use uni just because I like them, and it was kind of a necessity in this application just because of clearance. The other thing that had to be done is, well, carb related anyways, is the choke mechanism. This is the choke mechanism from the FZX, and I just had to fit it onto the FZR carbs, mainly because the FZR carbs, the choke is manually operated up near the controls. And I kind of didn't want it that way, just from looks and packaging. So I got the FZX ones on here. I think all I really had to do was modify the rail that the actuators, the choke actuators are on, and just kind of drill a little bit, like just a tiny bit into them, so that I could throw some ball bearings in there, and it could, it could do, or no, it wasn't that, it was, yeah, no, it was that, it was, I had to drill in, but not for ball bearings, for that little screw down there, so that the actuator arms could actually screw into the whatever the hell the choke rail is, or I guess that's what it's called. And so now it's hand operated choke, and it works just fine. And it really wasn't, it was a little bit of work, but it's not above anyone's pay grade really. Let's see what else. I think from an engine perspective that's it, but I didn't just stop from there. I also upgraded the front end. The front end is from the FZR donor bike, so it's got the beefier front forks. I believe these are, I'm not even going to quote it because I know I'm wrong because I completely forgot. They're bigger front forks, obviously dual piston, big ass rotors. The Fazer, had single piston and it's much smaller, 15-inch wheels. This is a 17. So it's very easy for me to go and, find replacement tires for this. The 15, not so much, it's a little bit harder. But yeah, so in order to make this work, really it was a direct swap. The stem is the same. You just literally just take one out and put one back in. So if you're able to find a stem, trees, the whole complete front end, it will swap up without really a whole lot of effort. The front fender, this is from the Fazer. I had to make these mounts for it, or these brackets for it, because it just wouldn't fit otherwise. It's just some real easy steel. It's no big deal, but it works. The hard part about it is if you want to retain the risers, which I did want to retain those. So what I had to do is, this is the FZR triple clamp, the top triple clamp, I had to drill into it, and you know, it's really the hard part of that is just making sure that both of these are even, because you don't want to have it a little bit off, because then you're, you know, it's not going to be comfortable and it'll be weird. So I just drilled through that aluminum, and then I made a plate, a big ass steel plate right there, a very thick steel plate that fits around the ignition switch and, you know, around the stem cap there, so that, you know, it's nice. And so it does two things. One, it allows me, because there's some ribs at the bottom of the triple clamp that don't allow you to mount it mount it flush. Like if you want to put a nut on there, it doesn't allow you to mount it flush. So you have to, you know, this allows you to be able to tighten it down, mount it flush, but also strengthens the entire thing, because this is a big bar that runs the entire length of the bottom of the triple tree. And also along with that, I had to make mounts for the instruments, because these are the Fazer instruments. And really all I did with that is I just made a bar, a big steel bar that mounted under the risers, and just had it come out a little bit and just mounted the instruments to that. So that wasn't all that difficult. I mean, really, that part of it wasn't. But and for headlights, I just kind of made this. This is just a basic off eBay turn signal and fork headlight bracket. It's nothing crazy about that, but this little black piece here I had to make myself, just to mount these two light bars on, and they're mounted, you know, like that. I mean, I don't expect most people to do this, because it was a bit of a pain in the rump to figure out, but I mean, it wasn't that bad. I like it. I think it looks good. So yeah, so all the instrument lights on here, I kept those. You know, everything works like that. You know, everything works. Let's see. Now onto the rear of the bike. I was lucky because the FZX came with this laser exhaust, and I just kept it and put it on the FZR, and you know, it works just fine. Oh yeah, and as far as rejetting the carbs, I put a stage 3 dyno in there, or Dynajet kit in there, and it runs just fantastic. But yeah, the exhaust is not stock, but I didn't pay for it. It came with the bike. Rear, this, I could not get the, there's my plate, hi. I could not get the FZR rear end to fit on here for a few reasons. First of all, it's, you know, as I think everybody knows, it's a monoshock, and this is obviously a dual shock. To do the conversion, I would have to swap in a swing arm from a Thunder Ace. That's kind of a hard bike to source here in the States, so I just said, nah, to hell with it. I won't even try and look for that. And also I kind of like the, you know, I like the dual shock. Well, actually no, the Thunder Ace, it would be to fit the rear wheel. You could keep the dual suspension on the Thunder Ace. So yeah, disregard that. But no, in order to run an FZR rear wheel on here, you would have to get the Thunder Ace rear end, or rear swing arm. I don't want to do that. So this is the FZX rear wheel. The only things that I put over from the FZR were the caliper, the rotor, and the brake stay, and that's it. You know, it's a little bit better braking in the rear. You know, I think it's single piston for the FZR and the FZX. I think the FZX is a slotted rotor. The other one is or this one's obviously drilled. I don't know. I like the looks better of this. I think slotted versus drilled, I don't know if there's too big a difference. What else back here? Oh yeah, the rear suspension is from a VMAX. This is absolutely necessary if you do this swap, just because the amount of power you're going to be putting down, you need to strengthen up that rear end, because, you know, you use the the new front suspension from the FZR, you're going to be fine, but you need something stronger in the rear, or else, you know. When I did the engine swap and I took it up the street, I couldn't stop because the FZX front end just wasn't enough to stop that thing as quick as I needed it to. So if you're gonna do this, definitely swap in the newer front suspension and stuff. And I mean, just for the back end here, like, just got my plate mounted there and the lights to illuminate it, and just mounted up my turn signals there and there. So if you're up here, you can't see them, but what they actually do is when they shine, they illuminate on the chrome here, and it kind of looks like your rear shock's flashing, and so it gets done. So, and then it just paints just black, and I got black with, you know, flat black, gold wheels, obviously, you know. So I guess what's left to do is for you guys to hear it. So let's do that. Now it's totally cold, so I think I'm gonna have to use an ass ton of choke. Let's see. Okay, it'll warm up. It'll warm up. Yeah, it's cold. It needs some choke. There we go, that's better.